All right. So, an official welcome to our podcast. I am so excited to have you on, Abby, today. For those of you that do not know Abby, I will give her a chance to introduce herself. We met probably for the first time at all, I think, last January, whether phone or in person. It was all together on our trip to Kenya, and a completely kind of life-changing thing for me. So what I would love to do is just have you kind of introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Blue Door and really kind of how Blue Door all started.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Abby Feckley. I am 21 years old and a junior in college at the University of Arkansas, which it's still so crazy to hear that I'm a junior. Like, that chapter is going to close soon, which is good because I'm kind of ready for next steps. But like you said, we met in Kenya, but Kenya wasn't always where I thought I was going in life. Like, I always wanted to be a nurse or a doctor, and it's kind of like you always hear that God kind of flips your plans upside down to kind of navigate them towards what he wants. And I'm a true testament of that. Ever since I was little, my mom always taught me to serve. You'd always find me in homeless shelters or at the nursing homes because I just loved to serve so much. But like those beloved teenage years, definitely departed from all of that, absolutely. Thought I knew best. My way was always the way it should be, to the point where I was almost sent off to boarding school just because I was tearing my family apart and they didn't know what else to do. But then I remember one night my mom just came in my room because I was grounded for 9 months because I was the type of kid that I was like, I don't care, lock me in my room, do whatever you want, I'm still not going to change. And I remember one night she came in my room and she was like, Abby, Satan is fighting for your life. What are you going to do about it? And I really wish that everything would have changed in that instance, but it was the first time that like something got through to me. And I think that's just how all of our Christian walks are, really, that everyone doesn't believe me when I say I was almost sent off to boarding school, but I think that's just a testament to what the Lord can do in our lives. Is I was there in that horrible season, and then thank the Lord he brought me out of it to where I am today. But after that, I kind of started going back to service. At 13, I asked my mom if I could go to Africa because I'd always wanted to go, and I'm so grateful that my parents didn't like clip my wings before they were like, I was ready to go. And they just really said, if that's what you want to do, like, go for it. And so that's a huge thing too to my story, is my parents play such a huge role in it, because I wouldn't be here today if they wouldn't have given me that freedom, which I'm so grateful for. So I always encourage parents that if your kids are really saying that they're being called somewhere, like, you have to let them go and let them experience things for themselves, which is such a side tangent. Gosh, I could talk about that for forever. But I would really say my first time in Africa, I was like not really a lot of help because it's so different over there, and my 13-year-old self was just shocked. But the only thing I remember is that from that trip is that a lot of the kids didn't know what they looked like, because when you like took their picture, they would jump around and dance and like tag on their friend and like giggle because they thought they were so cute, their picture in the camera. And so when I returned next summer, I promised myself that I was going to do something about it. So I took like a mobile printer that I bought with my babysitting money so I could take their pictures and print them out for them instantly. And like, as a 14-year-old, that was like my problem solution kind of thing. Like, that's what I could do to make the world a little bit better. And so I took their pictures that day, and we found a Blue Door at the school and started taking them. And it took 8 hours. Like, I didn't know it was going to take that long, but like, it was a job.
Yeah.
But that night I went home, and it was only me in the living room with the lady who had started the school, and I just asked her what her biggest need was, and I remember that so clearly, and she just said sponsorship. She didn't elaborate. It was like sponsorship, and I'm like, okay, you could have given me something else. Like, you know, like, you would think she would like explain to me what that meant, because I didn't know what it meant, you know. Sponsorship, cool, great. And so that I went up to my room and got underneath my mosquito net and was just flipping through all the pictures of the kids I had taken that day. And in that moment, my heart started racing and my palms were sweating and I was getting really nervous because it was one of those times where I felt like God was speaking to me so clearly that sponsorship was my part to play. And I just remember my naive self at 14 having no idea what it would look like or what it means. Like, I just remember saying yes and saying, okay, God, like, if this is what you want me to do, let's go for it. And so Blue Door really started because the Lord kind of showed me that that's what he wanted me to do, not because I came up with this huge idea thinking I'd ever be a founder of a nonprofit, but it really started underneath a mosquito net that night in Kenya when I was 14.
All right, so what does Blue Door do? Because I think like you're so close to it, and even me having gone, I obviously saw it all in action, but really in the day-to-day, what does Blue Door enable or provide for these kids? Like, what actually, where were they before and kind of where are they now?
Right, yeah. So Blue Door sponsorship, at the core of who we are, we're a sponsorship program for children. All of the children, we have 2 schools in Kenya with around 705 children that we get to love on and we get to care for, that God's entrusted to us. And so they're all needy. They're the neediest kids in the community, kids who wouldn't be able to get to go to school if they weren't sponsored by people in America. And so what our dream and vision for these kids are is education is the way out of the cycle of poverty in Kenya. And I truly believe that with my whole heart. And so when you sponsor a child for $40 a month, you get to like give them this hope, like give them a better future. So it provides their education. They get a meal, they get lunch every day at school, and then medical care if needed. And I always think that when I started, I always thought that it was just about the child, but when you sponsor a child, it gives so much freedom to the families because the parents can go look for work, and that's one less thing, one less burden they have to carry on their shoulders. And so really the core of who we are is a sponsorship program, but it is so much more than that because you do have teacher salaries to pay, and you have to pay the light bill, and you need water and transportation and stuff like that. So it's definitely broadened from what my first 14-year-old self thought it was, but it's so incredible because I truly do believe that it'll change the community. And I always think that I'm so invested in Kenya, and everyone's like, don't you want to go somewhere else? But I really feel the burden to be a constant for the kids. Like, if they need something, they know, like, I'm always going to be there. And so I really want to invest in this community and just dig deep there instead of going super broad in that way.
So, Abby, I love that you said it impacts the family as well, because you immediately reminded me when I was there and we went on a home visit, and I'll ask you about that too, to kind of like what their day-to-day was like. But I remember in that home visit, the mother, and she was a young mother, I can't remember, I want to say the child was like 6, and she said, or younger actually, and she said that what Blue Door has allowed or enabled to happen is that previously her only ability to make income was to prostitute at night, because she also had a baby that was there, and she would, you know, put the baby to bed and lock the doors and then go out into the street during the night while the baby slept and try to make money. And that's just like, even now, kind of heartbreaking for me. I'm sure I'll cry at least once while we're talking. But I don't think, unless you've really been there, that you even can imagine the situations that they live in and what Blue Door kind of brings them to.
Yeah, like that story reminds me of, I always tell everyone, there's like one of my favorite stories from Kenya, the story that kind of keeps me going. And is it okay if I share it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So this past January, I was at the school, and I'm always in a million places. I think that when people think I go, it's just a kind of like one task a day kind of thing, but I feel like a ping pong ball. We're just like going everywhere. And so I was at the school, and one of the workers came up to me and they're like, Abby, there's this mom here and she wants to see you. And she keeps saying there's this white girl that rescues kids named Abby and she wants to meet you. And I was like, I'm really busy today. Please apologize to her, but can you ask her to come back next Tuesday when I would be there to take all the Blue Door pictures for the kids? And so I left school that Thursday and I came back the following Tuesday, and she had been to school every day since Thursday just to see if I came early.
Yeah.
And talk about chills just thinking about that, like the despair, like that you would come every day. And so I was there on Tuesday taking the kids' pictures, and it took me 4 hours to finish their pictures to where I could finally have time with her because I wanted like full undivided attention. Mm-hmm. And so I asked one of the workers if they wanted to come translate for me because people in Kenya do speak English, but usually when they tell their story, they want to speak in Swahili, and they're like, oh no, she speaks perfect English. She'll be totally fine. Like, just go for it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. And so I just walk up to this sweet young mom, and I see this little baby boy. He's probably like 3 years old, and they're just sitting on the bench, and I introduce myself and tell her I'm Abby, and she told me her name and about her little boy named Ethan. And so she was just like, can I tell my story? And I was like, yes, please do. And she was like, but can I do it in Swahili? And I immediately got really nervous because it was just me, but it was kind of God's way of pushing me because I'd been studying Swahili at college for 4 semesters, and I felt like God was saying, I've given you this gifting, start using it. If you're not going to do it yourself, then I'm going to force you into the situation. And how true is that in life, right?
Yes.
Like giftings that God's given us, he gives us the opportunity to do it ourselves. And if we're not going to, we're just like pushed in the situation. It's like, okay, I should have just done it myself. Like I should have just done it this time.
Yeah.
So she just really starts telling me her story about how she had to leave her family, and she's all alone living with her sister, and all they have is the clothes that they put in a sack. And so she lives with her sister, and then she started telling me the same thing like you just shared, that since he's so little and there's no one to look out for him during the day, she just has to prostitute at night. So she was like, I give him a big dinner so he's full, and then at 7 I lock the door and I come back at 6 a.m. the next day. And then she just started crying, like, y'all, I just like imagined myself being there right now sharing it, but she just started crying and she said, Abby, please help me. Like, I do not want to do this, but I'm doing it out of sheer desperation. Can you help me? Like, I've heard you rescue children. And I'm like, no, you're not looking for me. You're looking for the founder. Like, she's a white lady. Like, that's who you're looking for. And she's like, no, I've heard of Abby. And in that moment, it was just kind of God's confirmation that this is my calling and this is what he wants me to do. And so I ran up to the office and I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know. Like, do I have this authority or not? And they said, like, it's okay, you can let him come. And so I got to go down and tell her, I was like, Caroline, bring him tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I'll find him a uniform. Like, don't worry about it. And she just fell to the ground. For $40 a month, like, it changed her life. And little did she know, for months I'd been praying that God would give me a little boy I could sponsor myself, because since I know all 700 of them, I can never choose. And so it was so sweet that it was just like perfectly orchestrated by the Lord. But I think that was my first real experience that, like, this is what I'm meant to do. And I just felt God all over that situation. So when you shared that story, it totally reminded me of that.
So good. And I have to say, it's so funny that you even, do I have the authority to do it? You're so cute. Like, you are, even when I was there in January, and I know in January you said that that's really when it kind of started to shift for you a little bit further. Like, you did start to feel like this was, I'm totally going to do a bad job paraphrasing it for you. So, but just that this was really what God was calling you to do, and that you are enough, that you were enough for it, and not to really allow the enemy to kind of come in there and tell you otherwise. But yeah, like, it's clear. It was clear when we were there
Aww.
that it was you. So, all right.
And he's so now he's like the class clown of the school, and he just bebops around and he just laughs at everyone, and he's always playing with tires. Like, he's the funniest thing. So again, just in 6 months, seeing him come to life just shows the transformation that that sponsorship and being in school brings.
I love that you said that, because the kids, I was shocked when we were there at how happy they were. And I say that because, you know, there's like such limited running water, you know, from our American perspective, like there's, you know, like the things that we think are necessities are complete luxuries to them. And, you know, often the rooms have dirt floors, you know, the classrooms, not all of them had doors, like depending on, I know one of the buildings was new, that kind of, you know, being built, whatever. But like toilets, like, were not really a thing in the school. Like, it's just, you know, and for us, it's like, wait, what? You know, so, and yet they still were so happy. Like, the kids were so happy when we got there. They wanted nothing more than to, like, eye to eye with you and hold your hand. And it was like, I never looked someone in the eyes for, like, so intently as they did with us. And just, they walked with you, like, hand in hand, they walked with you.
Yeah, I always have been telling myself and a lot of people lately that if you go in with American standards and American perspective, you will always be disappointed. But the great thing about going in there is it takes the blinders off your eyes about what actually truly matters, and that's being loved, being fed, and being given hope. Like, that's really all they want, those 3 essential things, and everything else is an added bonus. And if it's never added to them, it's okay, because they just want to be loved and taken care for in the rawest, purest form. And so I think that's what I just have to encourage people with is when we go, we have to take our American perspective, the way we want to fix everything off, because they want relationship. They want to be seen and known. And that's exactly what we want to be with God, kind of, if you think about it. Like, we just want God to see us and make us feel loved and known that we are his child. Yeah. So we get to kind of brush the dirt off of them and their situations and empower them that they do have a place in the world and they are chosen and they are loved. That's when you get the smiles and the true, genuine joy, just speaking that life into them.
Yeah, and the situation, or the physical situation that they're born into, is zero reflection on their spirit and their, like, that God did create them for a purpose and to be seen and known. And it was funny, while we were there, I just kept getting, each time I sat down to pray, that they needed to know that they were seen and known. The entire time. So, and it's true, just like we all do. So, yeah, it was great. All right. So, future plans. Yeah. What would you say? Like, is there anything that you would or could kind of call out for what your intentions are with it?
I think the biggest future plan right now is when I started at 14, $40 sponsorship really was the main focus, and it still is. It was just kind of like a small view and a small avenue of what really needs to happen, because I want to set these kids up for lasting change, and I want them to be difference makers and for their kids not to have to go through the same thing they've gone through. And so I truly have seen that educating them through high school is such a great first step. Getting them the foundation where you can speak into them and like start training them up in the way they should go. But I really do think that college or like vocational training is the missing piece that we have right now, to where when I truly want to set them up for success, they need to learn a trade and get a job. And so I think college is the huge question mark right now. It's my heart and the burden and the desire of my heart right now. It's just really asking the Lord for his timing and the perfect people to come along alongside to fund that, because I can't bear thinking about our kids graduating and then they're like floundering in the world. I think about when I graduated high school, I had no idea what I was doing. And college was that place where I could kind of figure out adulthood, I guess, in a way. So I think the same thing for kids in Kenya, like they still need that extra guidance to really set them up for success later in life. So college is my future plan right now. I think also the other future plan, I guess, for me personally is it looks like in 2021, I'll take the step to move full time, which is so crazy because I've talked about it for so long, but it's starting to really become a reality that I truly feel like the Lord's calling me to be on the ground in Kenya full time. So future plans for me, that's what it looks like, kind of stepping into that role of being helpful on the ground full time.
So I know. So good. All right. So we probably already talked about it even, but is there anything that you would say has been most impactful either to you or to the community? Or maybe to the people that come and become sponsors or already are sponsors. Maybe you could, whichever path you want to take there.
That's such a loaded question. Gosh.
I know, sorry.
Go from that, but I think the biggest thing I've realized is there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to fix everything, but if I can empower these kids and empower the teachers and empower the staff and empower the management on the ground, like they have everything they need to be successful. They just need the extra push. And so I think also what I've been learning lately that God's been showing me is he really wants us to do it differently. A lot of times in nonprofit, everyone's like, you have to have spreadsheets for days and all these plans. And I keep saying that I would rather be business poor in the way that business is supposed to be run, but spiritually sound. And so a lot of what we're doing lately is just following the lead of the Holy Spirit and asking him to guide and direct all of our path. And so I think that's been the really impactful part, that when I get out of the way, because I don't know how to run a nonprofit. I've learned a lot over the past few years, but really when I get out of the way and let God use me, that's when great change happens. And I think about David in the Bible, that he was just a shepherd in the fields taking care of the sheep, and then God's anointing came upon him, which really just means like God's approval on his life, and then he became one of the greatest kings and a man after God's own heart. But he wasn't the first guy that God chose. God chose Saul prior to that. And God gave Saul the opportunity to follow what he was asking, and Saul didn't do it. And so his approval was taken off of Saul and then put on David. And so I never take lightly what I get to do, because I don't want God's approval to be taken off of me because I'm getting so in my own way. And I really want to be a vessel for him. And so I think that's what I have to keep in the forefront, that God didn't have to choose me. There could be a million other people in this world who could do the job that he's assigned me, but I'm grateful that he's given me that job. And same for anyone else with the calling that God's given people. Like, we're not, he chose us, but he really just looks for people who are willing and have an open yes that he can use. And so that's such a great place to continue to be, that as you're walking in God's calling, just be a yes person for the Lord. Probably didn't answer the question, but that's really just what's been on my heart recently.
That is good. You did. You absolutely did. So what about something like, if I ask your favorite story, I'm not sure if your favorite story was meeting the little boy that you sponsored, or if it's something different, like maybe something that happened that surprised you along the way.
I think the biggest surprise for me, okay, just to be like super real, is that I figured stepping into this, it would be easy. And so then when my world was rocked so many times, I think that was the biggest surprise to me, that you always think, oh, when I step into God's calling, it's going to be so easy. It's going to be this straight shot, and it's going to be all like roses and butterflies. And so I think I was surprised kind of in the other way that it's been hard. It's a daily surrender. I think when you have opposition, that is confirmation that you're on the right path, because Satan wants everything to do with like discouraging you and taking your joy. And so there have been so many times where I've been in this place where I'm like, okay, like I think I might just want to give up. And people have, like my mom said, it's okay if you don't want to keep doing this. Like, you're human, like it's okay. And so I think it's those moments where you have to search inside yourself and wrestle the feelings and realize, no, like this is actually what I want to do. But I think I never knew it was okay to go through those times where you want to give up. That's normal. And I don't think that's talked about enough. And I think that's what surprised me, is it hasn't been easy and it's been difficult and it's been a challenge, but I think that's what makes it worth it in the end.
I think that's also when you realize that you actually do want it, kind of to your point.
Absolutely.
So, and one of those times, more than likely, that at least there was opposition against you, and I'll ask you to talk a little bit about it, was when you came home and went straight to the hospital.
Yes. I think, yeah, Satan will do anything he can, and for a while it was for my health. And so I was in camp, and one night I had a really high fever, and we didn't have like but mom was just like, I was so worried all night, like you were not yourself. And so I just told her, just get me home. And so I think I took like 4 ibuprofen and 2 Benadryl every 3 hours just to get myself back from Kenya to America, to the point where I remember I was in Europe and they looked at my passport and they almost didn't let me on the plane because they're like, this is not you. And I'm just like, just let me on, just let me on.
I promise.
Right. And so it was true. As I got back, I was hospitalized for a week, just because when you come back from Africa, I felt like the Monsters, Inc. movie. Like everyone came in like gowns and all these gloves with this mask. And I looked up at one point and there was like 16 people down the hall. Like phenomenon or whatever. So it was hard to where my whole senior year, for the first semester, I was like wheelchair bound because I didn't have enough energy to walk and my nerves were going crazy. And was another time where, gosh, it was so hard because I was like, Lord, I went to Kenya to do your work, and then now I'm straight in the hospital. Everyone looks at me weird at school because I'm just like not myself. And so, yeah, for a while, he used my health to attack me too. But I think, again, once you realize the ways that the enemy tries to attack you, it's easier to identify those things, and just having that support system. I remember women would come over throughout the day and they would pray for me because I just laid there and I was like, I'm done. It's over. Like, I don't want to keep doing this. And so you have to have those people in your life that'll speak the truth back to you and be like, no, Abby, this is an attack. Like, you're going to be okay.
And then you were.
Yes, and now I'm here. It's so crazy because even that, I was supposed to go to Kenya a few months later, and that was the first time that I sent it without me, and how hard that was. But it stretched me so much that, like, getting to go is such a privilege. Like, it's not a right, it's a privilege. And so that kind of changed my perspective too, that, like, I long back, but you have to go in the right timing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Already. I know. All right. So how do people get, like, if somebody wants to help or get involved, like maybe they're not sure if they could go to Kenya, but like they have a heart for babies, or they want to help, or education, or whatever the case may be, like nutrition, whatever it is, how can people help?
Yeah, so I think a great place to start is I have people to our website, bluedoorsponsorship.org, because it kind of has a vast view about what we do, because on the website there are children who need to be sponsored. So if you can say, yes, I can commit to $40 a month, there's sweet, precious faces on the website that always get me. They're just the cutest things. Oh, I love them. He's so cute. And so that's a way, but also some people want to go on trips. And so that's always another option. My email address is on the website. So if you just want to get in contact with me and I can walk you through that, that's great. But then I also say that just because I'm not gifted in a certain area doesn't mean someone else isn't. So I'm always willing and open to the way God wants to use different people to help me. Because I've always said this, that like at the perfect time, the right people always come alongside of me. When I didn't have a logo or a business card or a website or print material, he brought the perfect person to come walk me through that and donate their services. And when I need a great sounding board of advice in the corporate, brought the perfect person. So I'm always looking for people who just have a heart for the kids, who want to come alongside of us, just because this is a group, it's a team effort. I can't do it all by myself. And that's why it's so great that like I'm the face of Blue Door, but I have 9 specialists who work with me on every aspect of Blue Door, from like communication to a prayer specialist to an education specialist, someone who's in charge of sponsorship, someone who's in charge of crafts and finances. So it's definitely not a one-woman show. Like I don't want anyone to think that like I do it all myself, because Lord knows where we would be now if it was all up to me. So it's really awesome that I always look for people who want to come alongside in what God's doing in Kenya.
And Abby, I know people always wonder, like, if, you know, for example, I'm sponsoring a child, how much of the $40 a month that I sponsor goes to that child, or does it go to maybe, you know, a salary for you, or all of those specialists that you just mentioned?
Yes, that's such a good question that I always forget to answer. But so the only administration is the fee that PayPal takes, which is 3%. Other than that, all Blue Door admin costs are covered by people who just say, here, use it for that. I don't take a salary. I do it all for free, but it's what I love to do, so I don't mind. So the only fee that's taken out is the PayPal fee, and then absolutely the rest of it goes straight to Kenya. All
right. So last question.
Okay.
So if, I guess really out of all of this, like what would you want people to take away from it? You know, maybe is it to trust God in their own life, or, you know, the calling for you, or to not be afraid of whatever, you know, whatever you might think, what would you love for them? Or maybe is it just like to get out there and help? Like, I don't know, but for you, what would you love for people to take away?
I think the biggest thing about me is I can only speak about what I've learned in my own life. And I think for me, the kind of overarching thing is you're never too young to make a difference or to be used by God, and you're never too ill-equipped. Me being a 14-year-old starting a sponsorship program, being in high school, like I have 0 qualifications for this job, absolutely none. And the amount of times I've heard people say, well, you're too young, you don't know what you're doing. Yes, that's true, but my God is all-knowing, all-powerful. He's omniscient. He's everywhere. And when you need the exact wisdom or to know where to go, he's the one that guides. And so I really think that that's what I would tell people is stop counting yourself out when God's counted you in. Like, if God thinks you can be used in this way, then why would you get in the way? If God, who's spoke the world in existence with his words, sees you fit for the job, then stop self-doubting. It's okay to, I mean, we all do it, but like if he sees you fit for the job, then start counting yourself in, run the play, do what he wants you to do. And so that's really what I try to just encourage people to, is if he can use little old me to make a difference in Kenya and the lives of these kids, then he can use you too, wherever you are and whatever he's asking you to do. He just wants a yes and open hands. And if you just have a yes and open hands, then you're going to be blown away with what he wants to do. So that's
obedience and like changing a nation in the process. And I'm certain that you never thought it would be like that in the beginning.
No, and that's what I think is so great about him. They're like, Pastor Mike Todd, love him. If you've never seen him, Michael Todd, Transformation Church has changed my life this year.
Yes.
But It says either God shows you the mountaintop and not the pathway to get there, or he shows you the pathway and not the top. And for me, God just showed me, okay, the kids don't know what they look like. Take a mobile printer, pictures, sit in that living room and hear that sponsorship is what she needs. Go up to your room and I'm going to speak to you. He already orchestrated every little thing and I had no idea. I was oblivious to it. But I think that's why it's so I wouldn't get freaked out. At 14, if I would see where I am today, I probably would have run in the absolute opposite direction. But he's so sweet to just give me the next step. And when you walk in the next step, it doesn't seem as scary.
Yeah, yeah. And from the side of someone that does sponsoring outside of you, outside of you being kind of who you are and running the organization and the nonprofit. But for myself, just really the one thing that I would say is that you are, especially if you go over, but you are definitely no stranger to the children that you sponsor or child, even if it's a one-time donation, you know, whatever the case may be. The letters that they write us are wonderful. They really love their sponsors. Being there while they were writing the letters and reading letters that they'd received was so incredibly special, and to them, like, it was really kind of everything.
Every time I go, they always, when we're in service or whatever, they are always praying for their sponsors, always asking the Lord to pour blessings on them for the way that they've sacrificed to invest in their lives. And when you hear that, you're like, $40 sometimes isn't a huge sacrifice for us, but the kids are like, I cannot believe someone who has never met me would sacrifice in that way, which is so humbling. But I also try to make sure that people who are sponsoring the kids and are donating, I want you to know that, like, it matters. And so that's why she talks about the kids do crafts for their sponsors. So when we go in the summer, it's like a craft, assembly line almost, because we do like 2,000 crafts in the span of 2 days. So I try to let the sponsors have something once a quarter. Yeah, there was the craft. I love it.
Got them.
I love it. So it's kind of like what you would do in Sunday school, but the kids have so much fun doing it. So that's one I want to be personal to everyone. I want people to know I'm invested and the kids are too. So we try to be as personal as we can.
Yeah. And once you start, it's so easy to just love them.
Right. Gosh, they've captured my heart, every single one of them. I try to know all their names. So on the plane, I'm going to start flipping through the pictures, kind of like flashcards in a way.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I want them to feel loved and seen, because when I say their name, they're always shocked. They're looking around and I'm like, yeah, I know you're Brenda. I know you're Trufina, so I think that's super fun.
I know. That's the one thing as they're getting older and the kids that we sponsor and everything, one of them is going to be graduating before I will be able to get back. And yeah, just to think about that. And one thing that I didn't say is the average, we talked about Kenya in general and kind of where they were, but the average age of a child of a person in Kenya and kind of unemployment averages, I think I looked it up before, and the average age, it was ridiculously low. It was in the 20s or something at best. I think it was actually a little bit lower than that. And I'll drop it in the comments because I don't want to misquote. But also the average unemployment rate was so significant as well. So you definitely make a difference.
Right now, which is crazy. Even if I think it's 41%.
That's what I thought.
I think that's what it is. But again, these parents, they want to help their children, but there just isn't the opportunity. And so it's not we're coming in to fix everything, but if we can help in this little way, then that's important, because these parents want their kids to have a better life. They truly do. So who are we not to help when we're able?
And I think the fact that you do go in there knowing their names, and loving on them every single time, remembering them at the very least, and just being there for them and with them, that in and of itself, you know, can give them the confidence and the strength to step on their own, you know, to know that God knows who they are and that like maybe they could step into something big too. I love the dreams that they have, the goals that they have for after they graduate college, like the doctors, the engineer, like they, you know, they want it.
Absolutely. I always tell people that even though I'm not a mom myself, I am a mom to 705 children. And so I don't know what it's going to feel like to have my own child, hopefully one day, but I already feel like I have so many children. So it's so fun just because I do love them in that kind of motherly way, which has been a surprise to me that I could just love people so deeply that I've just met.
So good.
Yes.
All right. Well, is there anything else that I feel like we covered a lot, but is there anything else that you would want to say before we wrap up?
I just want to say to you, I'm grateful that you would have me on. It's such an honor and a privilege. I always tell people that I never take for granted people who are letting me share my story, because I told the Lord, as long as you want me to, whatever platform, I will share your faithfulness and your goodness, because I see it all over my life. And if it can encourage one person here, it's all absolutely worth it. So thank you for seeing something in me and letting me come on. It's such a privilege.
I feel that way about you. I'm thrilled to have you on here, and I hope that people resonate with this. I hope that they are able to dive in and do something and help, whether through Blue Door would be awesome, but even, you know, wherever God kind of pulls them to. So it's awesome. And I think that with it, you're inspiring other people.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, I love you so much.
Yes.
Let us end there and for our recording and our podcast for today, and have an awesome, safe trip.
Thank you so much.
I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.